Thank you for giving me some nuclear questions. I will definitely work on videos for those on my main channel, and those will be worked in and explained in far more detail. But in the meantime, I'm going to give you a quick Reader's Digest summary of your questions. Now, the main question that you guys had was, how does it work? And how does it affect us environmentally and with expenses and other things like that? So, starting off with how it works, nuclear power works very similarly to how most other forms of power work. The way it happens is you have a heat source, and then that heat is transmitted into electrical energy. And the main thing that separates nuclear power from other forms of electricity generation is that the thing providing the heat source is the atoms splitting on a nuclear level. So instead of breaking chemical bonds, you're breaking nuclear bonds. Now, when you're talking about safety, nuclear power shares a lot of the dangers and hazards that a lot of other forms of power production have. You have working machinery that you can get caught in and mangled. We watch videos about that kind of stuff for safety, to make you more safety cautious. You can fall off of scaffolding. You can, all sorts of things can happen because you have really heavy machinery and you have massive amounts of power being produced. So the thing that makes nuclear power so much safer than other forms, at least for the people working in the power plants, is the fact that there's radiation involved. Now, people get so scared just of the word radiation that nuclear power is required to be significantly more safety conscious than most other places. And as a result, you have significantly fewer injuries and deaths as a result of working in a nuclear power station than you have in other forms of power. More people die in other power industries because they're not nearly as safety conscious as people working in a nuclear power plant. Now, as far as nuclear safety is concerned, I have a video explaining the details, but basically what you do is you have regulations that you're required to stay underneath, and then on top of that, you have rules explaining how to keep your dose as low as possible and get it down as far beneath the regulations as possible. All right, last question, how nuclear power compares to other forms of power generation and how it relates to the environment. I'd like to first start by comparing nuclear power to coal to get you guys an idea of how incredibly efficient and powerful nuclear power is. If you wanted to equal the amount of power produced by 1 ton of nuclear fuel with coal, you would have to fill a freight train that stretched from New York City all the way to Chicago in order to equal the amount of power or electricity produced by 1 ton of nuclear fuel. So it's incredibly efficient and it has zero carbon emissions. When you have other forms of fossil fuel generation, the pollution is diluted over time. You don't have to really deal with it. You have to keep it under a certain level, but it's spread out over a period of time and it's spread out over a large distance. The thing with nuclear fuel is that all of that stuff is contained in one thing. So since it's all in one place, you have to deal with every last little bit of it. Now, what happens with nuclear fuel is the nuclear power companies pay billions of dollars to the United States government to have it put in a federally secure location. However, Congress isn't giving nuclear power plants a place to put it, so now nuclear power plants are required to store them on site, which they do very effectively, but they have to spend another couple $1 billion taking care of it on their premises. It worked. They let it sit in a casket and it's under very strict security and it's just allowed to decay away. Kind of like when you have a fire burning, once you put out the fire, the embers are still hot. You don't stick your hand in a fire after you put it out. You let it sit and cool down. So that's what you do with nuclear fuel. I'm sorry I went over 5 minutes, but before I go, I'd like to squeeze in one more little thing. Would you guys be interested in doing a Google Hangout and then live streaming it to the Vlogarithm? I feel like it'd be nice to speak to each other in real time. It'd be interesting. Let me know what you think. Thanks.